Hello, my name is Laik, and I was given the case study 15. And my main role is to analyze the job seeker placement rates and its revenue generation. So, my problem statement. So, the main goal of my case study is to enhance the job placements and maximize the revenue for GTS. The main challenge of this problem is to understand the correlation between the job placements and the revenue it gives for GTS, and using that to identify the growth opportunities in job placements and revenue streams. The main outcome of the problem statement is to provide actionable insights on the industry trends, placement rates, and the revenue patterns. So, the objective of my case study is to analyze both the placement rates as well as the revenue generation and gain insight on the different roles, the different locations, as well as the revenue generated in placements, in trainings, as well as employer contracts. Using these two data sets, I will be able to identify the key trends and opportunities for improvement and will recommend strategies to optimize placements and improve the financial performance. So, data collection and sources. In this case study, I will be using two main data sets. The first one is the placement data set, which gives information about the job seekers, the placement status, the job roles, employer details, as well as the location. The other data set is the financial data set, in which the revenue generated from job placements, training programs, and the employer contracts will be available. The time frame for this case study will include data being analyzed on a monthly and a quarterly basis. So this is a snippet of the placement data known as the placement underscore data.csv that I will be using for my case study. It includes job seeker ID, the name, the status, the role, the industry, location, employer, as well as the placement date. The other data set is the financial underscore data.csv, which includes the revenue ID, the date, the revenue source, amount, as well as the job seeker ID. In both of these data sets, the job seeker ID is common. So the first step is the data collection and extraction. The first step in this stage is to use pandas. So we first import pandas as PD, and we create two variables, placement underscore df and financial underscore df, and read the CSV files which we had created and saved in these locations. The next step would be to display the first few rows of both of the data sets to get an idea of the kind of data that is being stored in the data set. The next step would be the data pre-processing and quality check. So within that, the first step will be to handle missing values. So at first, we check print placement underscore df dot is null dot sum to see if there are any missing values in the placement data set. And then we move on to the financial data set and see if there are any missing values there. In this case, when we see that I have run it, this will show the head of the data sets. And this shows the columns as well as the missing values in each column. So we see in the placement data set that the employer name two values are missing, and the job seeker ID two values are missing for the financial data set. So to check for that, we fill the missing employer names with not placed in the placement data set. And in the financial data set, we drop the missing amounts. The next step is the data type correction. So with various data types, it makes it difficult for operations for analyzing the data sets. So as we have noticed in the data sets, includes a placement date as well as the date in this case. For any calculations or operations which require using the date, it has to be converted into a datetime format. So pandas has a function to underscore datetime, which converts the date and the time in both the data sets into a common datetime, which we can use for further operations. And to help in easy calculations, we convert the amount in the financial data set into a flow type. The next step is the data analysis and insights. So at first we try to calculate the job placement. So first we take the length of the placement data set, and then we take the length of those who are placed, whose placement status shows as placed. And then we calculate the percentage, which is basically the place divided by the total into 100. And then we get the overall placement rate, which in our case was 60%. The next step is the revenue trend analysis. So this is to check the amount of revenue generated in a monthly basis. So in this case, we calculate the amount per month, the monthly revenue from the financial data set, and using the date, which we had converted into data format previously, and we see that in the monthly revenue, the total amount that was generated in each month during the May, the June, and the July period. The last step is the correlation analysis. This is to check the correlation between the placement versus the revenue. So in this case, first we convert the placement status to numerical. Since the status is not in a numerical format, it will be difficult to find the correlation. So in our case, we take the placement data set, placement status, and we apply the value of 1 if X is placed, 0 if not placed, or else NaN. And the next step is to remove those who are in progress. We only need the placed and the not placed for our correlation analysis. We also remove the employer contract revenues, which is those who have no job seeker ID, and keep only the placement revenue. So we check the revenue of only the placements, not the training. Upon doing that, we notice the amount to show as 0.72. The closer to 1, the higher is the relation. And so 0.72 is a good indication that there is a correlation between the placement and the revenue. So this is the final steps. We merge the data sets for having the common job seeker ID. We fill those missing revenue for 0 for job seekers who did not contribute to the revenue. And then we finally compute the correlation and print it. Now visualization and dashboard. So an easier way to understand those industries which have a high placement rate would be to show it in the form of a bar graph. So in our case, we use matplotlib at Seaborn to find this. And again, we convert the placement status to numeric, 1 for place, 0 for place, and we don't include the in progress. We also drop the NaN values and we group it by industry and we find the percentage. So the higher percentage would increase the higher placements and vice versa. These are the indications for the figure. We have the title, we have the label in the x-axis for industry, the placement rate for the y-axis, and this is just to ensure that it's better aligned. And the y-axis is 0 to 100%, and this is just for easier readability. So when we run this for the bar plot, we'll notice the placement rate across industries. So we'll see that for design, engineering, resources, and marketing, it's 100% placement rate. For IT, it's not 100%, but it's above 50 to 60%. And sales, there is nil placement rate, which indicates that the placement rate is the least for sales and also low for IT. This could be due to less demand or not enough skills for the job seeker to meet the market requirements. The next step is to see the revenue trends over time. Earlier, we had seen that monthly the amounts that were generated for job seekers and how much GTS had earned in that case. And over here, we're going to create a line chart, which will help us to see the growth per month, how much revenue they're generating and how much they're losing. So we create a plot, and for the month with the amount of revenue, this is for easy readability. And then upon running it, we see a line graph where on the 5th of 2024 to the 6th of 2024, we see a huge increase in the revenue. This could be due to peak season. Again, maybe the demands are high during the season, the revenue increases. Between 6 to 7, the revenue is still increasing, but the demands are lesser. This could be a seasonal change. This could be a trend which is common during this period, or it could also be lack of interest or lack of placements during this period. The next is to check the placement rate through the job role and the location. So as we've seen in the data set, the placement is done through the roles and the locations, the two key factors in deciding where they're getting placed and why they're not getting placed. So again, we use matplotlib, seaborn, convert the numeric from the status, one for placed, zero for not placed. We group it by job role and we group it by location. This gives us the percentage for the job role and this gives us the percentage for the location. Again, we create a bar plot for this and we have the x-axis as the job role and placement rate, and similarly for the location and the placement rate. So upon running this, you see the placement rate first through the job roles: data analyst, designer, HR manager, graphic design, HR manager, marketing manager, mechanical engineer, software engineer. Again, like we had seen in the IT with the low placement rate, we see the software engineer role being less. Similarly, the sales executive has almost 0% placement rate. This indicates that the demand is not as much or the skills are not on par. Same thing with software engineer. The next is the placement rate by location. We see Austin, Boston, Chicago, Houston, Los Angeles, and New York have a 100% placement rate. This includes high demand, the skills are required in these locations, and the placement rates are very high in these locations. However, we see in Dallas and San Francisco there is a 0% placement rate. This indicates either the demand is less or these locations have less opportunities, or it could be seasonal, various factors. Then last for visualization we have done is a revenue breakdown by the source. So in the financial data set, it was given between the training programs as well as the placement and the employer contracts. And using this, we'll be able to see the revenue source and the amount in a pie chart form to see the where the revenues are highest and where the revenues are lowest. So upon running it, we see a pie chart where the placement shows 79.1% and the training shows 20.9%, which means the revenue source for GTS would be higher for the placement and training is very less compared to placement. The reason for this could be due to higher demand for the placements, less demand for trainings, or maybe due to higher success rate in placements, maybe lower quality in the training, not a high quality of teaching in the training, or the skills are not on par. So, in conclusion, we see that in the industries and job roles, the design, engineering, HR, and marketing have a strong placement rate, while the sales and software engineering need intervention. They need more attention and focus to improve the placements. Similarly, we've seen on the locations, these have 100% placements, but Dallas and San Francisco again require more attention compared to the other major cities who have 100% placement. Revenue growth, as you had seen in the line chart, it increased largely from May to July. But the growth slowed in July, which requires increase in strategies and focus to improve the growth of revenue during that time period. And revenue dependency, we have seen that 79.1% of the revenue comes from placements, and therefore diversifying income sources through training programs is recommended, which means a more emphasis should be placed on the training programs. So finally, the recommendations. So increase employee outreach in low placement sectors, so sales and to a certain extent IT and cities, Dallas and San Francisco. Improve the training for software engineers to enhance job placement success. Diversify revenue streams to reduce dependence on placement fees. And finally, to monitor revenue growth trends and adapt strategies accordingly. What we had seen is in May, June, and July, the revenue growth could vary on the different months due to seasonal trends or demands varying during different seasons, peak hiring periods, or periods which have the least hiring. All of that should be taken into account. So, Again, finally, the low placement sector sales as well as the low placement rate of cities of Dallas and San Francisco should be targeted. And specifically, the job roles of software engineers should be improved to enhance the job placement. And similarly, for sales, the sales should have a better skill set, a better variety of skills to improve their placements. And also, the revenue streams should be diversified so that it does not only focus on placement but also focuses on training as well. That's it. Thank you.